Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Today, we're talking to Rebecca Lee. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Janae.
It's been a long time. We're classmates from way back, but we reconnected not too long ago. Yeah, so now we're here. Both of us are business owners. It's like kind of crazy, especially considering where we came from. So let's get started. First question. Tell them more about you.
I knew I wanted to be a social worker from seeing the justice issues, the inequities, and seeing the immense amount of privilege that I have. It just became really clear that I wanted to be a social worker. So great, go down that path. Worked in wraparound where I work with kids and families, loved that work, worked in hospice for a really long time. So really got pretty cozy with grief and loss and kind of navigating through those really tough, challenging conversations. And always kind of saw this entrepreneur space as a space that someone else smarter than me must be an entrepreneur, but there's no way. And so finally got out of my own way and decided I need to do my own thing. I need to make my own path. The systems that I'm working in, I am noticing the burnout rates, the exhaustion rates, the lack of taking care of people who are trying so hard to take care of other people. And so went sideways and started my own business, worked as a therapist, a clinical therapist for a while, worked as a clinical supervisor, supervising those that are wanting to be a therapist. Again, digging into the problems of the therapy space in and of itself, because it's still very much rooted in this capitalistic society that we live in. And so now I'm at the place of I provide a program that is specific to folks around burnout, around people finding their own authenticity in their work. This whole idea of so many times we're expected you have to sacrifice something. So you either don't get to do what you love doing, or you don't get to have rhythm and balance, or you're not going to make very much money. And the idea that you got to sacrifice one of them, you cannot have all three. That is not a possibility. And the more that I have worked with social workers, counselors, therapists, other helping professions, the more apparent it is that, again, that is the conditioned view that we've been dealt, but that, yes, we can have all three. And the more that we can dig into our own authenticity and really understand what our vision is for our life and actually be given permission to explore it, all of a sudden it's a game changer. Everything changes. All of a sudden the burnout starts going away because you are living your life based on how you want to live your life and not the construct that you've been given along the way. But it's one of those that it's been, I would say, the most rewarding journey that I've been on, because you really do, when you go into business with yourself, you figure out all of your edges and you start getting really comfortable with those edges, and you start getting to that place of kind of being excited to find the next edge. Like, what's going to be the next thing that makes me a little bit uncomfortable? Because then all of a sudden you're looking at it from a place of curiosity versus something that you need to run away from because the discomfort feels unsafe. So that's a little bit of the backstory.
It's so interesting to think about your origin story as we were growing up as children, and then how you got into the places that you are. And I think of you as so introspective, so thoughtful, but also forward thinking into how can I build a life into the business that I want to bring into the world. Like being able to stack, it's sort of like both and. I can be a great person and be a great business person and be a wonderful mother and be a wonderful wife and be a good friend and be a wonderful sister and family member and all of those. And I love to, I think anyway, way. I hear like you've been able to figure out a way to stack that while making money. Like, shy away from the important parts. Like I need to still pay bills and I still want to create a life for my children and things like that. Right. So like, I love hearing that.
Yeah. And it's one of those, like, it just goes to show how much, like, the more we start digging and getting uncomfortably comfortable with ourselves, the more we start uncovering things that we love that we didn't even realize that we loved. So for example, like you said, I always have been an introspective person. Like I'm always kind of doing a lot of internal processing. And so growing up, I understood the concept of being introverted. I also was very familiar with the concept of shyness. And those two started merging together as one thing. So instead of I'm introverted and the way that I gain my energy is by having some alone space, how other people perceived that was that I was shy and that I was quiet and that I was uncomfortable in social situations. And so that all of a sudden started to become my identity. And the more I started working on these edges, the more I realized, oh, you actually love talking to people and hearing about who they are and digging in and having groups get together and having groups and working with different women who are talking about things in such a profound way, but that I would never be in that place if I kept that conditioned expectation and that norm of introvertedness is the same as shyness. I would have never even touched it with a 10-foot pole. And now I'm doing the things that are the exact opposite that I ever thought I would be doing because I dealt with some of those pieces. And so it's kind of exciting to think about, okay, what are all the other things that I haven't that will continue to get fleshed out over the years.
Your phrase is finding your edges. Like I love, I think about my own edges. One of them is being visible. And then here I am. And like being on camera, saying words, talking to others. I mean, I don't think that I'm particularly shy. I have shy vibes, but like not specifically. So but definitely my edge that I've been like trying to look over and be like, what would happen if I just did? So I like the idea of you bringing up the edges. So you know that most of these people listening are business owners, small and solo, to small to mid. It could be anywhere. What are some suggestions that you have? Some advice for someone who's just trying to figure out what's next for them?
I think one of the first things that when I'm working with folks and trying to get some orientation around is to just start to lean into spaces that are uncomfortable. Because again, when you're in your own business, I guarantee you are dealing with all of the discomfort that shows up with that. In our society, the norm is to avoid discomfort and to see discomfort as some kind of negative that's showing up, because we live in a society that it's a scarcity mindset. Everything is a scarcity mindset. And instead, getting really comfortable with that discomfort that's showing up within us, because that's our own inner wisdom that's literally sending us messages on where to go next and what we can do next. But so many times it's really easy to interpret that discomfort as something that we need to run away from or a thing that we need to avoid. But when the discomfort shows up, asking yourself the question, now, is this discomfort making me feel smaller? Is it making me feel insignificant? Is it making me feel like I have to prove myself? Then that discomfort is telling you there's something authentic there that's telling you that that's probably a thing that you should avoid. If that discomfort is that thing that makes you feel like you're kind of all of a sudden everything is opened up, everything is expensive, and you're like, oh, is a little bit scary, but it's a little bit exciting. Like lean into it. But there's messages that are there. And I think the more that we see it as our own internal wisdom that's speaking to us versus the message is just to avoid it altogether and just chug through, and we're just going to keep going. And no, slow down for a minute and really sit and process it. And if you need to find someone who is a mentor or a support person that can help you kind of process through it, find that person, because I guarantee you have a message in there that is probably telling you to lean into your authenticity. But you may not ever see that as the message if you're avoiding those messages in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, you have an excellent point. Like discomfort is scary.
And it's that piece of like that authenticity is your vision, where you want to go, what's most important to you, what values you hold. That's the cueing piece. So again, if you're feeling this sense that I get within me is making me feel like I have to prove myself, or there's shame built around it, and it doesn't feel good, it makes you feel like less of a person, then you know that whatever's happening is pulling you away from being authentic. It's when you feel all of a sudden suddenly expansive and you get that overwhelm of like, whoa, this is new territory. I'm a little bit like anxious about it. But does it make you feel big, expansive, a little bit scary? Yeah, that's probably because it's pulling you towards authenticity. Because I think sometimes we notice, let's say that we work in an organization and we've worked 40 hours that week, and we've been working overtime week after week after week. And the next ask is someone is saying, well, you need to work through your lunch and through your break because we just need you. Okay, now you're uncomfortable. You're uncomfortable. So lean in. What is it? Is this making me feel bigger, better, more valuable? No, it's actually making me feel exhausted. It's making me feel tired. It's making me feel uncomfortable in all of the wrong ways. So that ask they're asking you is pulling you away from what's authentic. But all of a sudden you're like, I want to create an organization that works with teens and animals simultaneously, because I think if teens and animals could get together, this would be amazing. But it freaks me out. You're like, okay, follow the discomfort. It's big, it's expansive, it's scary. But what is it doing? It's leaning you into something that is actually resonating with you. Again, decision-making always feels very challenging because it's this idea that there's only one right decision. When the reality is there's probably 10 really great options. You're just going to land on one. And then what are you going to do? You're going to iterate it. You're going to change it. You're going to shift it based on what felt good, what didn't feel good. But it's that like, I can't make decisions. Or were those entrepreneurs that I have 18 different ideas in my head at once and I want to do all of them. Okay, do one. And then you can iterate it. And you'll probably iterate it by incorporating that next idea. But it's just got to do the thing. We just have to take the step, because we can definitely stay in this paralyzed idea making space pretty easily. I've been there plenty of times, too many times.
Yeah. I really want to go back into this discussion that we're having about discomfort.
Yeah.
Like, can you tell me more? Like, I understand the thermometer or the barometer as sort of the black and white version of it, but what else about discomfort helps us grow our business?
I don't necessarily go straight to directly answering the question, but going a little bit sideways, because where my mind goes a little bit is this other idea that I talk about a lot. And it's around the idea of, finding rhythm in your work and finding kind of seasonality to your work. Like you kind of have to get uncomfortable with bucking the system. Like that's a lot of where the discomfort is showing up, is we're pushing against the societal norms and expectations of this is what a successful business looks like. We're like, that idea doesn't fit the majority of us, if any of us realistically, because there's not rhythm in it. There's not seasonality in it. It doesn't ebb and flow. It just becomes this structure that we follow because that's what we're supposed to do. That's what we've been taught to do. And so I think people grow their business when they get comfortable with not doing things the way that they are supposed to, but instead doing things in a way that are their whole body can lean into it. Because that's what we need for our business. We need all of it. We don't need some of it. We need our heart in it. We need our mind in it. We need our spirit in it. For it to feel successful, success should be based on, do I love what I do? Do I love what I do? And am I making the money that I want to be able to make doing what I love doing? And instead, success is usually someone else's definition of what that means. And so I think the more that people can find rhythm, can find seasonality in their work. And by seasonality, I mean, does your business look identical in the winter as it does in the summer? Are you the same person in the winter as you are in the summer? Should your business morph and ebb and flow with what you need at different times of the year based on what's happening with the seasons and even life seasons? Does my business need to shift with life seasons or changes that are happening in my life? And do I have that flex built into my my business? And so one exercise that I have people do right from the get-go is to do a time study, a natural time study. So go through your regular week, your Monday through Sunday, and you start when you wake up in the morning and you end it when you are done at the end of the day. And you go through and you look at, what are the times of the day that I feel creative? What are the times of the day that I feel drained, that I feel tired? What are the times of the day that I am excessively distracted and I can't keep track of anything? What are the times of the day where I just have so much focus and intensity in what I'm doing? Extrapolate that out through the week. And then, are you seeing your clients in the times that actually make sense? Are you doing your organization, the work that you need to do in the background during the times that actually make sense? Are you, during your most distracted times, is that when you're doing your finances? Is that the best time to maybe do your finances? And so to actually look at your day and figure out where and how do I want to schedule myself so it's actually in line with what's happening in my body, what's showing up for me, where my skill set is, where my energy level is. And so like my business shifted significantly. I was seeing people really, really early in the morning, and I was trying to do all of this organizational stuff in the afternoon. And I'm like, whoa, that needs to be completely swapped. I'm super intensely focused in the morning. So great. That's when I'm doing all the background work to my business. And then I'm really creative and open in the afternoon. That's when I need to see clients, because then I'm absorbing things in a completely different way. Yeah. But it takes getting uncomfortable, because if I did what I was supposed to do as a therapist, I would see people after hours because that's what you're supposed to do. I would see people probably through my lunch because that's when they need to be seen. And so I wouldn't be scheduling myself in a way that actually realistically made sense for me. So sure, I can do that for a while, but I'm going to burn out. It's not sustainable. I'm not going to be able to keep it up.
Yeah. And the goal is, there's a lot of studies that talk about how long small businesses last. And, there's a break at first year, they break down at second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year. And I do believe, among other things, that it's not just that, the business failed. I think that there might be also a failure in the mindset or the behavior that a business owner feels like they have to do, that they're supposed to do, that goes and is completely overwhelming, right? And so there's a failure of the business, finances don't work out, cash flows, a mess, whatever, that's a thing. But I also think that, we we can get to a point where we've a good friend, a new friend just said to me, you can get to a point where you're an overdoer and you don't have any signposts or ways to be like, and you're overdoing it now because we're quote unquote supposed to overdo it.
Right. And I would agree with that piece of, it's a failure of mindset for sure. And I would then take it that step further of, but whose mindset is it that's failing? Is it really yours, or is it some conditioned mindset that's been shoved into you over the years of this is what it's supposed to look like? So yeah, it's a failure of mindset, but kind of being able to get people to then realize, oh, it's because it wasn't mine. So I didn't fail at this because it wasn't mine. I didn't even actually get to practice my own mindset out on this. I was practicing someone else's. And so then being able to go back in again, when you feel like something has failed or something hasn't worked, go back in and look at, okay, what is your mindset in this? What is natural to you? And then what are all your strengths? And let's be really, really clear about what are the edges to those strengths. Where maybe you need to build in community into your business, mentorship into your business to get the support that you need, where you're like, that is an edge. That will always be an edge. And that's not going to be great for my business if I don't get some support on that particular edge.
I need to conquer that edge. It needs to not be so much of an edge.
Right. Because I know for me, I think a big shift was I'm a saver. I've always been a saver. And so it was, no, I can figure it out on my own. And I'm smart. I can figure it out on my own. So I would just figure things out on my own, bump up against all sorts of different things. Until I finally got into that mindset of like, okay, if you're going to run a business, you also need to invest in yourself and your business. So then I was able to switch gears of investing in mentorship, in trainers, but being very, very clear about who I was looking for, and not just anyone that shows up, but really looking at, okay, who's this person? What's their background? Are they burned out in their business? Are they the people that I want to get mentorship from? Or are they people who are being really honest and real about, being a small business owner is hard. It's challenging. It can also be the most rewarding experience that you may ever have. But figuring out where my edges are and figuring out where I need to bring in additional support. So definitely another piece to that is don't go it on your own. We're not supposed to build businesses in isolation. And it doesn't mean that you have to have an employee for all of these different things. It just means that you're connecting with a community of people that can support you. And then investing where you need to. Because I know it's made a big difference for me to find some really solid mentors. And they completely changed the game for my business, because all of a sudden I'm like, okay, now I have those pieces covered that were missing simply because maybe I didn't have the experience or I didn't trust myself enough to make those decisions. And then you have someone backing you up saying, are you kidding? Yes, just do it.
I think a lot about that too. Like when you find a good community, whether that's a mentor or somebody that's on the same level, what ends up happening is you start to fast forward to through the screw ups, through the things that'll slow you down, the things that will not get you, they'll question you like, why are you doing that? And not in a terrible way, in a very, at least in my experience, it's been fairly loving. And they're like, why are you doing that? I don't know. And at least in my experience for myself, it's often because I'm like, oh, well, I'm supposed to do it. And they're like, you're supposed to do nothing. You're supposed to run a business that makes sense. Right. So I really like that too, of remembering that community. I feel like that's a really big message that's coming out of this podcast as a whole. Community is key.
Yeah. But community is one of those that I have worked with people individually for a long time. I've also worked in groups for a while, and it's just hands down, people grow exponentially in community. It's not that they're not doing their own work individually themselves. It's not that they aren't having all of their time being introspective, but when they're doing all that work in the midst of people that hold them to their values, that push their edges, that look at their steps of what they're doing, and like you said, lovingly question, wait, is this actually in alignment with you and where you want to go? Or is this just another thing that you feel like you're supposed to do? And yeah, I just feel like there's just exponential movement that happens when people have a community that allows them to really be vulnerable, really be honest, deal with the discomfort as it shows up, and then get to the other side of it.
I mean, period. I feel like that's, and gets the other side of it. So, Rebecca, I mean, we're coming to the end. How can people find you? How can people, follow your journey? And what are you offering?
So right now, the main program that I provide is called Becoming Home. And it really is centered around getting back into rhythm. We have a society that's very habit focused. We love habits. We've got so many books on how to create really good habits. And the reality is habits tend to be stagnant. They tend to do it this way and continue doing it this way indefinitely. And if you miss it, don't feel bad, but get back on the bandwagon. And this program is really looking at pushing the concept of rhythm, the idea that we expand, we contract, things ebb and flow. Things aren't going to look the same one day to the next. They're going to shift, but having that alignment around what is most important to you, what feels right to you, from things to how you go to bed at night, to how you wake up in the morning, to is there movement incorporated into your day, to how do we actually engage in relationships? So that program is a year-long program where we really, really work on finding rhythm, finding connection with our own sense of ritual in our life and how that can support us. And so that's my primary base program, is called Becoming Home. The idea that we have home within us all the time, and we just have to learn how to become that again, but it's always been there. And you can find that on my website, which is justlivingtherapy.org. And you can also find me on Instagram under Just Living Therapy as well.
Cool. So thank you, Rebecca, for being awesome and dealing with my crazy after all of these years. So
I think it's been wonderful to reconnect again. I don't think that we always have that opportunity. So when it happens, it's fortuitous, lovely, and wonderful.
Hey, let's get through the discomfort, right?
Yeah.
It can be uncomfortable to reconnect with middle school friends. But it did feel like the right thing to do, and I'm incredibly glad for it. So thank you for being you and for being still so much of the same, but still so different. So thank you. And with that, folks, we're going to say goodbye. I'm Shanae Jackson. This is the Idea to Empire podcast. All the links and all the things will be in the show notes in the description. I promise I'm not hiding it. We'll see you again next time. Bye.